Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life, the podcast. You're listening to Author's Corner, where we highlight and showcase our local authors. Today, I'm speaking to Ron Schneebaum, MD, and author of Bigger Hearted. And Ron and I are going to be talking on the topic Becoming Bigger Hearted, Thinking with the Heart and Mind. How many of you want to know how to do that? I am going to be interesting in this conversation to see what I can pick up because it's very true. You got to lead with love. Welcome, Ron.
Well, thank you so much. So nice to be here.
Yeah, you're very welcome. All right. So let me give you guys a brief introduction. During his 40-year career as a primary care pediatrician, Ron Schneebaum, MD, regularly noted the power and importance of love for the human psyche. He also saw that when love is not felt, self-worth crumbles and enjoyment of life decreases. His personal observation showed him that the effects of not feeling loved can last a lifetime. These include poor self-esteem, an inner voice of constant negativity, painful emotions, and difficulty with relationships. Having seen their roots, he developed a path to turning these hurts around, one based on the common sense and inner compassion. He used this approach to help his patients and their families understand and manage their inner challenges. All right, Ron. So we're going to start off strong. The first question I have for you here is how does thinking about love apply to everyday life? And how does this make us become bigger hearted?
Well, one of the things that occurred to me early in my career is that we really think in two different ways. I've not read this anywhere else. We think with our intellect, and that's normal, matter of fact, logical kind of thinking, but we also think with our hearts. Now, when we think with our hearts, what we do is we imagine another's experience from their perspective. And in order to really do that, we have to be open to love and compassion. Otherwise, we don't get to know it. So we imagine somebody else's experience from their perspective, and then we ask ourselves inwardly, what can we do to support them, to help them, to move them forward? And we use that all the time. So when you think of, who knows, waking your kids up in the morning, you have their experience in mind. When you talk to a person you love, you have their experience in mind. And when you carry that to other places in your day, then it really makes life worth living. Because a secret that happens when we touch this place of love, we inwardly grow.
Yeah. I love so many parts of that. So,
And so let me just throw in one other thing, because you asked about practical things. One of the things, I used to be a school teacher. I taught fifth grade. And there was a group in my class who were friendly, affable, they got along well, they were good students. And I easily kind of lent myself to them because I thought I would have been like that as a kid. And then there was a kid in my class I realized who was a little bit brainy, a little socially awkward, a little shy. And something said to me, my job is to make him comfortable in the class. My job is to be his teacher. And that wasn't an intellectual thought because he was succeeding. He was a smart kid. It really was a heartfelt, compassionate thing of saying, how do I make him a part of this thing so he feels comfortable? Because that'll affect his whole life.
that's good. I like that. I like that because you notice that he was awkward and uncomfortable. And yes, his experience with his teachers and his peers, you're right, affects him the whole life. But one of the things when you were talking, I remembered something when you talked about um uh, you know, dealing with people from the heart. Two words came into my in my psyche. One is compassion, the other one is empathy. So one of the things that I've learned on my journey as a coach and as somebody that's in the personal development space is that a compassionate heart it doesn't come automatically, right? A compassionate heart needs to be cultivated. You need to be able, for instance, Mother Teresa had a compassionate heart. Jesus had a compassionate heart. But apparently it's not something that is automatic. You've got to work with it and you've got to cultivate it. That's the word. Empathy, on the other hand, a lot of people are not empathetic because they don't have the ability to put themselves in someone else's shoes. And that's basically what you're talking about. So you're right. Compassion and empathy are not things that are granted to everyone. So, how do you think that people cultivate compassion and empathy?
So it's a great question. So let's start with, suppose there's an activity that you like to do. Suppose you like to play tennis or you play golf or you quilt. When you do those, you enjoy doing them and you practice. Like, part of the deal is, separate from the actual game, you practice so you're better at it. That's the image for how we do this other stuff.
Mhm.
Now, it turns out that in order to become more compassionate, first, it's something we naturally have as human beings. One of the ways I think about that is, if somebody was sitting next to me on a bench and they suddenly dropped something or fell, I wouldn't say, wait a second, I have to put on my cloak of compassion and then I can help you. No, it's part of us. Now, if in the physical world we want to get better at something, then we develop a plan and go for it. And if it's reaching the keys on a shelf or going for our higher education, we don't do that with our inner stuff, because love and compassion aren't ours to hold. Instead, we work on ourselves inwardly. It's more like letting light into a room by pulling back the shades and cleaning the windows.
Mhm.
So that it's letting love into ourselves, and that we do both by acting kindly and also by opening ourselves to it and forgiving ourselves. One of the ways we can do it simply is, think of any time you felt love and compassion. It could be at a time when you were petting your cat and making your cat purr. And then what you can do over time, this is great to do if you're sitting around or before you fall asleep, you wake up during the night. Picture that making the cat purr and the compassion you feel. Then over time, drop the circumstances that brought the feeling and focus on that feeling. And that can, over time, can start to get you there. And then when you act kindly, and think to yourself during the day, how do I act kindly here? Because when we act kindly, then love is in there, because compassion is love made practical.
Mm. I love it. Yes. You know that it's I'm back on the love and compassion, or the compassion and empathy, because um when I'm in the space of learning from the gurus and the meditation and things like that, that's when I understood that a compassionate heart is something that you've got to cultivate. That is not normal. I'm a very empathetic, compassionate person, and I thought that everybody was, until I learned that everybody is not in that space. Because you see what's going on in the world today. We're in the culture right now where nobody cares about the other person. I mean, I have been, fired from companies when one time I had just bought a house, and they didn't care. They were just thinking of the bottom line, and I'm thinking, how do you not have compassion? But you only think about yourself. You only think of your experiences, and that is the world that we live in today. So you bringing this content to people's awareness is a really good thing. So, what can we learn from our feelings and emotions that we can use to live better lives? So, I don't know. Are you talking about the compassionate, empathetic feelings and emotionals here? Or you're talking about if you were really think you hate somebody?
Oh, it's the kind of thing. First, out of what you were saying, we wouldn't need this if the world was doing very well. At the same time, while people aren't kind, everybody's depressed and anxious. It doesn't work. It's not what makes us human. If we think of the times as the great times in life, it's really when we connect with another person, when we're there with another person, when we like another person. That's really what makes life valuable. So let's do what works. That goes back to the sports analogy. Let's do the things that work for us that we like. That's the reason for getting good at it. It's not moral. It's, the more I can touch someone else. I loved my pediatric career. The more I could connect with families and kids, it fed me. So that's really where it's at. So in terms of emotions, imagine there are easy emotions and difficult ones. If it turns out that every time we walked outside, everybody stopped what they were doing and applauded and say, "Hey, Myrna's here, yo!" You walk into a
That'd be
stadium,
nice
stadium lights up, then we wouldn't have any problems. Where are difficult
till it stops. because that's what happens with the famous people. And when it stops, they go crazy because they're not getting the attention. But anyway,
So it has to come from inside, not from the outside. You can enjoy the outside, but it has to come from the inside.
right.
So that so that if if we get um if we don't get approved by the outside world, that's when our negative things happen. So then what we want to do is we want to have a plan that works. So let me tell you an example of emotions. Suppose it turns out I'm driving in my car, I'm in a parking lot, somebody cuts me off. Now, that person almost hit me. So I could respond by jamming on the horn, screaming and cursing and so on. Now, if I look at that and not looking at it from a moral perspective, what did that achieve? It made me upset that'll last for blocks. It made everybody in the car that had to listen to me upset. And the person who cut me off isn't getting out of his car, getting on his knees and saying, I am so sorry I did that. Thank you for waking me up. No.
No,
So it doesn't work. I saw a kid in my practice who came in with a sore hand and it was all black and blue and the bones above his palm were tender. He clearly had what's called a boxer's fracture where somebody punches something hard. And in teenage boys, that happens when a girlfriend causes problems. So that's what happened here. So his girlfriend broke up with him. He tried to talk her out of it, so he punched his locker. So I said, Jerome, that was a great idea. The only problem with it is your hand isn't happy, the locker doesn't care, and I don't think your girlfriend said, wow, you punched the locker for me? I'm not breaking up with you. And he could see that it doesn't work. So if we're in a situation that doesn't work, instead of being angry, we can assess what happened. And we could say, I delivered this report at work and the people at work didn't accept it. So I could say to myself, well, let me think this through. It could either be I didn't present it well, so I need to go over it and present it better. It could be they don't agree with me. They don't really like the idea that I presented. Or it could be the person who was the evaluator didn't like me for whatever reason. I can take all that and decide how do I want to go forward. I could decide if this was really important to me. I could decide I eventually have to find a new place to work. I can't work in a place where people don't support me. And you could do that. So that's much better than walking around and being mad. So a lot of it's like that.
I like that. I like that. What can you do about it? Right. Instead of reacting, right? That's something they teach. Instead of reacting. I'm sorry?
No, I was going to say, suppose in a different way, your kid who's like 10 years old was in a softball game and his team lost or he did something bad and he was angry at school. He was angry when he got home. He's still angry at the dinner table and he's walking around stomping around. You would think that's not the way to go.
No.
The reason it's not is suppose he was an adult and something didn't go his way and he ended up being cranky and angry the whole time. Nobody would be.
Pouting, right?
Yeah.
We were calling pouting.
Look, that doesn't work.
Right.
So it doesn't work. So we can get over it, not over it. We can work through it and think about what the problem is and how we want to respond because it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. The word I was looking for is respond and not react. When you're reacting from a place of anger. You're reacting about what? But if you carefully think about how you're going to respond, and something the best response is to do nothing, but that's great. So if we learn how to answer that question, if we learn how to manage our emotions, right? It's also called emotional intelligence. Then we can learn to live better. We can learn not to be little spoiled kids, just pouting because things didn't go our way. I like that. You're giving good examples. I love that.
Be effective also will be able to solve the problem in an effective way.
Better way. Exactly. But not all the emotions, bogging you down, because when you're in those negative emotions, you can't make any proper decisions, right? Because the negative emotions is what's ruling you. I like that. Okay. All right. So what we talked about so far is how do we, show love and empathy and develop a compassionate heart and all that. So how does these things increase how happy we are and how happy we feel? I think I know the answer, but let me hear your psychological answer.
The place when we connect with love, when we connect with compassion in a real way, we feel better. I mean, that's what relationships are about. That's what That's what makes life interesting when we feel part of it, when we feel together. So, yeah, it just makes life better.
Yeah. And in your bio, you said you said some really good things. I mean, I didn't have one of the questions here, but I'm gonna add it now. Is that if you go around thinking, like, for instance, if you're married or in a relationship with somebody and you don't think that you're loved, it does affect your self-esteem, does affect your confidence, does affect your happiness. And it's your perception too. You're not really sure, but you're not feeling the love. They says, I don't feel love. I don't feel special from one of my favorite movies. But yeah, so what is your answer to that? Where um, you're not feeling loved. You don't think this person loves you, and you are reacting to not being loved. And how do you handle that?
So there are two things. One is before going into a relationship, don't fool yourself. Um, I would ask parents, I would think about how do I talk about relationship with teenagers? So I asked parents, I don't remember how I started, but I asked parents who were divorced if they're surprised, if they look back to when they first got married, are they surprised that they're getting divorced? Just about all of them said no, they're not surprised.
Really? I was gonna have a different opinion because you always go and think it's gonna last forever. Are you saying that that's not true?
A lot of people know it's not going to last and they do it anyway. And they'll make excuses for why, for why they're going to get married anyway. The ones that it's surprisingly the few that said no, I'm not surprised. That's where there was an unexpected affair or something that really didn't happen. But otherwise, we kind of blind ourselves and hope that it'll disappear.
Okay. So the answer to the question is what? How do you go around knowing that you're not loved? How do you deal with that
So,
emotionally?
another one is to say I would also give teenagers what I call my peach analogy of life. Summertime peaches are great. I really enjoy summertime peaches. And I'm pretty good at getting a sense of what's going to be a good peach. It feels right, it's good, and so on. Now, suppose I bit into one of those and it really was mealy and wasn't good tasting, I would throw it out. If we get into a relationship that doesn't work, we end up taking it personally. No, it's just a peach that didn't work for us. It's not that the person is bad, it just didn't work for us.
That's good.
So
Yes.
the idea that we have to be together is a really unhelpful idea. Um, we don't. If there's a time that there isn't somebody meaningful in our lives, take up hobbies, do volunteer work, be with your friends, be with your family, learn how to cultivate yourself. So when you then do meet that person that works, then it's great.
I like that. I like that. You're dropping some good nuggets. A lot of people take it personally. A lot of people don't get over betrayal. A lot of people don't get over that someone hurt them and walked away. And that's because they think that there's something wrong with them. But I like what you say. And I've always felt that. I said that love, I mean, I just said it another way. I said that love is not guaranteed, right? Somebody can love you today and don't love you tomorrow. And if they don't love you anymore, then you let them go. You don't have to be mad about it. You don't have to be vengeful about it. You don't have to want to get back at them because it's their prerogative. So I like what you said. Hey, yo,
Now,
sometimes the reason that for me.
another thing that's a neat practical thing is what I call family meetings. Suppose you are married to someone or they're your partner long term. That is such an incredible arrangement because here are two people that are either different sexes or not, come from completely different backgrounds, see the world differently, and we suddenly expect they'll do everything harmoniously. It doesn't work like that. So, what's a very nice thing to do is to get together, say once a week or once a month as a business meeting and talk about all the things from finances to vacation to who knows your sex life, anything that fits in, and talk about how it's going. You're doing it from the attitude of you love each other. So let's hear each other. It's not to complain to the other person, it's to hear the other person so we're on the same page. Like, how could I expect my wife to raise my kids and treat our kids parallel to the way I do things, so we can talk.
Yeah.
And if we and the part that happened for me when I had to do this is if there were things that would upset me normally, I would say, "I can wait till Sunday for that one."
Mhm. when you talk about it. Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, so that can be helpful.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I was reading a book the other day. I think it was The Compound Effect. And the guy was talking about these meetings, and I incorporated it in my marriage for a little bit and I dropped it. But but I know what you're talking about. It's a very good thing, the relationship. Yeah, what do you call it? The every week you talk about what went well for you and what didn't go well and what you can do better and things like that. So that's
And
really a good
and you're
idea.
doing it at a time it's like having a business meeting. Every business has a business meeting. So
Yes.
it's not a personal thing. It's saying, "How do we get this to go really well? Because we love each other. We don't want these little things to get in the way."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Good advice here. Good advice. All right. All right. So your book is about becoming bigger hearted. So how does forgiveness allow us to become bigger hearted?
That's a huge one. It's great. As a pediatrician, one of the things that I got to see is babies around 4 to, say, 9 months are unbelievably delightful. They smile, they laugh, the whole world smiles with them. We were all such babies. Then it got clouded over. And it got clouded over either because people didn't treat us well when we were kids. They told us we was something wrong with us or we weren't good at something, and they said negative things. And the psyche seems to handle that by absorbing it and believing it's true.
Mhm,
And then it buries it in the unconscious. So we end up thinking that we're not good.
mhm,
So anybody who gives you a hard time isn't happy. Nobody's happy would do that. So what we can say is if they were hurt as children or hurt as adults, let me try to look past the outer stuff and connect with the person inside. Now, along with that, I can also regulate how much I'm with them. So they don't have to know that I'm forgiving them. But suppose someone gave me a hard time as a kid. I can either think about their background, of course they did, look at the struggles they went through, and so on. And so I can forgive them, but then I can also decide how much I'm with them. It could be that if I'm with them too much, it's hard.
mhm,
A different thing is I developed like 5 levels of forgiveness. There's one I call family gathering forgiveness or wedding party forgiveness. If you're at a wedding and your ex is there, nobody wants to hear you guys arguing. Or if you're meeting your kid at the soccer game and your ex is bringing their new partner, your kids don't want anything other than my folks get along great.
mhm.
So we just do that. And so it doesn't mean the other person has to know I'm forgiving them, but I just see past the outer stuff to connect with the human being.
Yeah, that's really good. Right. That's really good. Another way of saying that is, I was reading something the other day is that if you knew, like, let's say that you're married and your partner is um not very nice or whatever, but you remember that she was sexually abused as a child, and you know that her experiences as a child is what's showing up in your relationship. So you kind of deal with her or him from the basis is, I understand. The same, the empathetic, compassionate heart is coming back, where you understand who she is now is because of what she's been through. So basically, that's, what you're just saying, that you forgive somebody because you understand what they've gone through. And, even though you might not tell them that you're forgiving them, but you're forgiving them, in your mind because you understand their path or their journey. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's right. And so if it's in a marriage, though, there you would like the other person to say, "You're right," and help me work past it, or make sure I want to see someone so I can work past it. I don't want to be stuck there because when I'm stuck there, then I treat you miserably.
Right, right, right.
And so another way that I heal divorce is to say the person I divorced acted the way they did because that's how they saw the world. Given everything that happened to them, that's how they saw the world. I can't blame them for that, but it's also not somebody who I want to stay with.
Right. That's true.
And
It's their journey. You know what I mean? It's their journey. It's not yours. And but very few people are able to divorce that. So that's why they're having, they're authors like you that write books. There's a lot of coaches. There's a lot of personal development things, because a lot of people don't ever go there unless they're aware of it. They just react. They're in their feelings. Someone hurt them. You know, people have, you know, gone to 80s and 90s being upset about something someone told them when they were in grade school because they yes, you know, somebody says they're not good enough and they went around all their lives thinking that they're not good enough, and what that person said is true. So yeah, you need to understand, you're right. That person said that because that's how they felt, right? And you know, they didn't have a right to tell me how they felt because now they transferred it to me. But then you've got to understand, you know, why they said that, their journey, unhappy people, hurt people, and you've got to come at it from that way. But very few people think that way.
Yeah.
If
And another one you remind me of, it was another thing I would tell teenagers is don't take on a project. What'll happen for some people, they'll meet the hurting person and they'll think, oh, I can love them enough and they'll get past it. Unless the other person wants to be fixed, you ain't never fixing anyone.
Oh my
And you
God.
end up getting dragged down and miserable.
Yeah. Well, that's not for teenagers. That's for women that want to fix men.
I would, and for guys that want to fix women, I would always, when I talked about this stuff, I always had the parent in the room because I wanted them to hear it too. And they would crack up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes,
So we think we
yes.
can fix someone and it never works.
No, no. God give us free will, and until someone is ready, you know, fixing them. Right, right.
Now, the other side, you asked about forgiveness.
Mhm.
The other side of forgiveness is forgiving ourselves.
Right.
So here it is. I was raised in that difficult situation, and I end up snapping and getting angry and doing all these kinds of things. I have to learn to forgive myself and start to heal my own stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the hardest one too, to forgive yourself. Right. Yeah, it's the hardest one because we're
Once you
always
realize you have to, um, if when you were a kid, somebody said, "We wish we never had you," and they were this alcoholic, drunken person, that's really not a way to judge yourself. That doesn't mean that first, if they can't give it to you, love is part of the world. You can connect with love even though you didn't have it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But they also said what you don't have, you can't give away. So, um, yeah, you got to learn to love in some way. This is pretty good. I love
So
it.
the ways you can love, two things. One is I got to see newborns in the hospital. People from every background and every walk of life love their newborn babies.
Yeah.
If a kid had a problem and needed to have heart surgery right after birth, the love would be even greater. The kid didn't earn it. The kid's in the negative column. He needs surgery. And even parents that are really have social and emotional difficulties, they love their kids when they're born.
Yeah.
They might not have cared for them well, but they love them.
Right. It's true.
Every one of us was one of those babies. We were loved, and the love we can connect to is transcendent. It crosses cultures, it crosses time. It's a thing in the world. If our parents can't give it to us, we can still open to love and find love within.
Love it. I love it. Yes. And if you can't, then it's a very sad life. But yeah, you got to open to love. I love it. I love it. Yes. You know, one of my mottos is be love. Yes, make it become you, become it. You know what I mean? So that's awesome. All right. So let's talk about your book. Your book is called Bigger Hearted, a retired pediatrician's prescription for living a happier life. Why did you write it? And what do you want people to walk away with after reading?
Um, as crazy as it sounds, one day I was walking up the stairs of my house and it was said to me that I should write down what I know about happiness. I mean, I don't know if it's a voice or what, but I just knew I had to do this thing.
Good.
And there was no arguing. I didn't even know why. I didn't know if it was me. I didn't know if it was a book. So I just did this thing and it continued a trail that took its own spin. Um, and the chapters in the book talk about this thinking with the heart. there's a chapter that's dedicated to healing childhood hurts, because we really can do that on our own and painlessly. And then there's a chapter on emotions and managing emotions, the way we talked about with a systematized approach, decreasing worry, having better relationships. And it's really everything that I learned from the kids and families I cared for and from my own life. And so when I had a package, I said, wow, this is it. But then I had to see if I could, then that was my book. But it took 20 years to write.
Oh my gosh.
I learned so much.
Huh. So is it a big book or you were gathering research?
And it's 170 pages. It's not that big.
You know what? I'm going to pick up a copy of it because I always love to learn. In fact, I just started writing a course about healing childhood trauma and hurt. So you've got one of your chapters in there because, that's yeah. So but that's pretty good. So yeah, I'll definitely pick up a copy of your book. All right. So how can listeners connect with you, get a copy of your book? Do you have a website? Are you in social media?
So the book is available anywhere,
Mhm.
and it's available on Amazon and all book places. I'm currently working on the audiobook version.
Okay.
So that'll take another couple of months. And my website is called biggerhearted.com. And I also have social media stuff that's at Bigger Hearted. Some of it hasn't been developed yet, so some I'm working on. But if you come to the website, you can download the introduction for free and see if it's for you. There's also kind of a blog that I do there that's called Heart Thoughts. That's about everyday practical experiences that use our hearts. In one, I give this example of this, these are things that happened to me. I walked outside and I left the trunk of my car open and it rained during the night. And my trunk is vertical when it's open.
Oh wow.
The trunk is full of rain. And I didn't get mad at myself, not in the slightest. Because I thought,
Give yourselves. Good.
yeah, because if I get mad at myself, that's to remind myself not to do it. I didn't need to remind myself. I knew that I shouldn't do that. So instead, I blotted out what water was there and reminded myself to leave it open when it was warm later so it wouldn't get mildewy.
Wow. That's consciousness. That's living consciously. I love it. We all should do that.
And then I took it a step further and I said, how would I be if my partner or spouse had left the trunk open? Why would I be any different?
Matter because you think that you're careless and yes, you probably matter them that you're than yourself. At least
Yeah, so I have to get rid of that. And suppose it's my teenager. But instead,
and
everybody
expect it
not
from the
me.
teenager.
Exactly. So that's the kind of stuff I have in this Heart Thoughts on the webpage. And also people can do workshops and consultations.
Okay, I love it. Good work. Good work, Ron. Awesome. All right. Well, I'll definitely support you in the process. I learned something about being bigger hearted, and learning how to deal with people because we all learn every day. I mean, I'm always learning, so that's great. So I will, and I'm a reader.
I have to learn more about you. You have to tell me about you.
Right. I read like a book a week, so I'm a reader. I like them an audiobook, but this was good bedtime reading, so I'll pick up a copy now. All right. So I love their conversation, Ron. That is, and I hope you guys love too, because this information is how you transform your mind to transform your life. It doesn't get better than this. You become a compassionate, empathetic, learning how to love and learning, have emotional intelligence, how you respond and react and love people for their faults. Love them anyway, because you're not sure of what their journey is, or even if you know what their journey is, then you know that they've had a difficult time and you accept them. That's how I live my life, right? Understanding where people are coming from, understanding, we touched on it briefly, childhood wounds, it shows up in adults, right? Shows up in adults. I was listening to a sermon yesterday. The guy says, in order for you to understand what's going on, you've got to go to the root of the problem. You got to take an axe to the root. And yes, everything that people are, this umbrella, there's a root to it. If they're kind and sweet, it's because they had love. And if they're not, that means that somebody hurt them and they're responding and reacting to it. So in order for you to have a bigger heart, you've got to learn to be compassionate and understanding and empathetic, and live with love, be love. There's no better word.
You should have written my book. One last thing I want to mention. If you send me an email, it's ron@biggerhearted.com and write book club in the subject line. If you study this in your book club, I'd be happy to join you in either in person or by Zoom.
Okay. All right. Book club. Awesome. All right. Will do. All right, guys. Well, awesome. I enjoyed this interview. I hope that you did too. We learned quite a bit of things on here. So go ahead and pick up a copy of Ron's book. It's called Bigger Hearted, a retired pediatrician's prescription for living a happier life. I will link out to his book on Amazon on the show page at myhelps.us. And I will also link out to his social media handles. So, and his website. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Ron, for being on the show. Until next time, namaste.
So nice being here. Thank you and namaste.